Banjo Ben here, coming to you wherever you're watching this fine video. Maybe you're over on the site as a Gold Pick member at banjobenclark.com. Hey, today we're going to do a lesson called Intro to the G Run. You say, well, what's a G Run? It's very important. You've probably heard this before. There's one variation, and it's very important for us as rhythm guitar players to know. We're also going to use it in our lead, yes, but it's one of those cool tricks that you have as a rhythm guitar player to help drive the song forward. There's lots of different ways that you can play them, but I think before you really need to learn those, you need to learn some of the fundamentals, and that's the purpose of this video. We're going to dial it all the way back to what I call the VIP notes or the MVP notes, either one. The ones that are most important, and we need to understand the timing so that you know when to play this G run and not just try to insert it where it don't need to be, because you could get in trouble there, right? And then we're going to expand from there, talk about the theory of where it comes from, and then I'm going to teach you a couple variations that you'll probably end up using more than any other variation, and the most common ones that you hear out there in bluegrass music. If you are watching somewhere else like YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, wherever, you need to know that there's a home called banjobenclark.com where I have tons of Gold Pick members, a great forum, and I upload lots of videos there for people to learn. You have tabs, gem track MP3s, all that good stuff, hundreds of lessons, and this is just one of those. So without further ado, let's jump into this lesson. The first thing we need to ask is, what is a G run? What's the purpose? All right, then we'll talk about how to play it and where it comes from. But why do people do this in bluegrass? Well, of course, it's a stylistic thing, and it's traced back many decades in bluegrass rhythm guitar, first being played, I don't know, 30s and 40s. And then who really popularized it was a guy maybe you've heard of named Lester Flatt. Okay, Lester Flatt played with Bill Monroe, and then, of course, went on to Flatt and Scruggs and beyond. And Lester had a very unique way of playing rhythm guitar, and he would play an abbreviated version of what we know today. We're going to learn it first, actually, because I think they're the MVP notes. And when you ask, what is it for, it's really meant to signal the distinct phrases that bluegrass songs have, also meant to signal when a section is over, maybe after you've gotten done with a chorus and you're getting ready to go into a banjo solo. And actually, Earl developed a banjo lick that's complementary to the guitar G lick so that whenever they're played together, it sounds like bluegrass. It's just what you do, and it's a beautiful thing when those things are married together. And so the bluegrass G run is something that a rhythm guitar player can really use to contribute to a bluegrass ensemble, even if they're not a flat picker. You need to kind of know how to do this, and you can do them in all kinds of different keys. That's later on in the course. But for today, we just need to learn about what is this G run. I'm going to get very detailed in how you should play it and teach it to you. And we're also going to just do lots of practice, just back and forth looping, some slow play, so that you can make sure and get it done, get it learned, and then you can go and apply it to some of your favorite songs. So with that being said, let's dive in and let's look at those two, what I'm going to say are the most important notes of a G run, called the MVP notes. When we're talking about playing the actual G run, I want to start with the last couple notes. I think these are the MVP notes, and they're the most important to start with to really understand the timing and the placement of the G run. And what's good about it is even if you just learn these last couple notes, they serve a wonderful purpose of playing a G run. A lot of times I'll opt for these two notes in certain situations. Maybe you're going really fast, or if you're task saturated, but maybe you're playing or you're doing something else, making faces at the sound guy, then these work perfectly because they really are the most important notes of the G run, and they're the climax. They're at the very end. So listen. Guess which ones are the MVP notes? VIP, MVP? It's these last two. Okay? Now, it's the second fret on the D string, and then we're going to play our open G string. Now, we'll talk about the theory of these notes later and why they're important, but right now I just want to concentrate on us playing those and figuring out where they are in the measure. One thing I want to call attention to is our pick hand, and I want you to practice doing what's called a rest stroke. So whenever we play that second fret on the D string, I want our pick to go through and rest on the next string. See that? And then we'll press through that next string when we're ready for it to play. It's called a rest stroke, and it's going to help us develop control and provide a more powerful G run as we get it down. I don't always do that, but I think in most cases you should. Now, let's just practice playing those two notes. Whenever you play the open G string, you can lift up with your index finger that second fret. It doesn't need to ring out. We don't want that sound. Okay, now let's think about where these are in the measure. Now we're playing bluegrass or country music that is in 4/4 time. That's 4 beats per measure. Now there are other rhythm runs that we can play in waltzes and other scenarios, but this is for 4/4 time. That means that each measure gets 4 beats. So as we look at the tab here, we've got a couple sample measures, and these have 4 beats in them each. And when we look at these MVP notes, we see that the first one happens at the end of this first measure. The second one happens at the start of the next measure. And that makes sense because the G run is running up to place an accent on the start of this next measure. So for right now, we just have rests, just to take the place of the rest of the G notes, G run notes that we'll have. And we're going to concentrate on coming in on the 4th beat in that measure and then playing the first beat of the next measure. So what I want to do is just count out loud and let's practice coming in on the right beats. So we're going to play this on the 4th beat and then go through it. It'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Play along with me. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So that helps us just kind of get the pattern going. Now what I want to do is introduce some very simple boom chuck rhythm that we've covered on the basic rhythm course to let us hear how these MVP notes sound in the context of some other rhythm. And that's what we find in measures 3 and 4. Can you find the MVP notes in measures 3 and 4? Where are they at? They're right here in the middle, right? So we're going to do boom, chuck, and then we're going to play another bass note here, like we normally would. And typically, we'd have another strum right here, wouldn't we? But instead, we're going to play that boom, or that first part of the MVP notes, and then start our next measure with that top of the G run, and then resume our rhythm. Let me let you hear how that sounds. Play along with me. Boom, chuck, 3, boom. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. You'll notice that I am accenting. I'm playing the MVP notes a little louder than the rest of my rhythm. And that's what we're going to be doing in real life. We're wanting this G run to cut through our guitar rhythm and to cut through with the other instruments. And so we're going to have them stand out a little bit, depending on the situation that you're in, the environment that you're in. But try to get that effect with me. Let's try it again. Ready, go. Very important that you can play these MVP notes in the context of looping this rhythm. If you can't get this step, you need to just keep looping it with me until you do. And the more that you play this, the more that you'll begin to feel where that G run is supposed to fit in a measure. Let's make it a little bit more realistic. Let's take a 4-bar phrase, because that's typically what we're thinking in bluegrass. Most songs give you 4-bar phrases as little sections. And let's introduce kind of a make-believe progression here, starting in measure 5. And we're going to have a measure of C. You see that measure 5. Then we'll have a measure of D. And then we'll do our 2-measure G that we were just practicing. Okay. And this is a very common 4-bar chord progression for the end of a chorus or the end of a verse, end of a solo in a bluegrass song, that we would hear a G run in. Okay, that's just with some upstrokes thrown in, but just to let you hear what the context is. Let's try playing it together. Ready, go. Let's try it again. Let's try speeding that up a little bit just so we get more of the feel of what a real song would be. 1, 2, 1, 2, ready, go. Let's try it with a song that you may be more familiar with. We'll sing a little bit of 9-Pound Hammer and apply this. There's a 9-pound hammer. It's a little too heavy, but it's for my size. Here, let's try it here. Well, go on, buddy. Don't you roll so slow. How can I roll when the wheels don't go? Here we go. We start to get the feel there. All right, so that's the MVP notes and understanding where they fit in the context of the measure. We got our rest stroke down, and we've got some practice playing some basic rhythm. Now it's time to press on and see where the entirety of the G run comes through that we most often hear today, things like this. Okay. And then we'll do some practice and look at some variations of those as well. Now that we've learned the MVP notes of the G run, we need to learn some other notes too that make up the whole G run. That and other variations that you may hear out there. Actually, the G run is really based off of something that you've probably heard of before called the pentatonic scale. If you've never heard that term before, you're going to. I teach it to you here on the site. That's just a fancy name for a 5-note scale that's made up of really safe notes in a key. If I could explain it to you just on the most topical level, these are notes in the scale that are going to play well with just about any chord that you're going to face in a certain key. Now, a regular major scale, not to get too deep into it, but a regular major scale is made up of 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it starts over again. The pentatonic scale is just grabbing 5 specific notes out of those 7 and that are the most friendly notes to other keys. All right. Now, those 5 notes, if you played them in a row, are really the ingredients of a G run. So let's just learn this pentatonic scale first, and then we'll talk about how to make it fit, because we can't just play them all evenly like that. It doesn't quite work. We need to adjust the notes here and there, but let's just learn them first. They start with the low root G, C measure 9 there, then the open A string, then the 2nd fret of the A string, then the open D string, and then our MVP notes that we've already learned. 2nd fret, open. Can we just play all those together, downstrokes? Again. Now our challenge becomes taking all 5 of those notes and finding different patterns that we can use and different timings that we can use to fit all of that into one measure plus a beat. Because if you remember back with the MVP notes, where did that first MVP note land? Do you remember? A little trivia. On the 4th beat of that first measure, right? And then the final note right there, it landed on the 1st beat of the next measure. So our G run, if we look here at measure 11 and 12, our G run is going to essentially take up all of one measure, okay, depending on your variation, but most of the time, all of one measure, and then land on the 1st beat of that next measure, which we practiced when we played our rhythm examples. So what we've got to do is take this pentatonic scale and make it fit somehow into here, and we'll even end up playing with the notes in that scale here in just a bit. But this is just for simplicity's sake to keep it to keep it progressive in your mind. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these notes here and we're going to scoot them closer together. We're going to make them eighth notes instead of quarter notes. That's what you see right here. And then that means we can take this first MVP note and scoot it back where we're used to seeing it when we practice in the last little segment, and then still land on our top root note, that target note, right when we're supposed to on the first beat of the next measure. Okay, so how does this sound? Well, it sounds like this, and then I want you to pay attention to something. If we're counting that out loud, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay? So if you don't know what eighth notes are and how those work, there's videos on the site and the learning track that explains all that. I won't take the time here. But I do want to point out that for the first time, we're seeing pick stroke directions in the tab. And that's because we now have a note that is not a downstroke. And because this note, this open D string, falls on the and, on a backbeat of a beat, we're going to give it an upstroke. That's following the strict alternate picking rules, which are meant to be broken later on, but for now it's very important that we follow that, okay? So what I want you to do is practice playing with me this pentatonic scale in this particular rhythm, which makes a great G run even by itself. Can you play it with me really slow? Let's try it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Let's try it again. 1, 2, try it again. Okay, now that G run, making it fit there, sounds pretty good by itself. Okay, now we're going to get more fancy than that, but it's a great thing to practice, okay? So in fact, let's just do that. Let's put it more in a rhythm context. And what we're going to do in the second measure is we're going to add those strums like we did before, and then we'll just keep doing it back and forth. 1, 2, ready, go. Great job. Okay, now if we work it more into a realistic chord progression, like we did earlier, where we have a measure of C, or the 4 chord if you're in the key of G, and then a measure of D, and then we'll do this G run like we've learned so far, and then we'll press on and learn some more variations. Let's try it together. 1, 2, ready, go. So maybe putting it into a song that you know, like 9-Pound Hammer. We can try that again, just for some reps here. And then we'll move on into some more common variations. 1, 2, there's a 9-pound hammer. It's a little too heavy, but it's for my size, but it's for my size. Well, roll on, buddy, don't you roll so slow. How can I roll when the wheels won't go? Now, one thing I want to point out as I think about it is that my last 2 fingers did not come off the neck whenever I'm doing this G run. And there's no need to, because we're just working our index finger, right? And it's got the freedom to move even when our index and ring fingers are planted. Now, when we do some variations later on, as we're going to do in this next little segment, it's probably going to require it to come off. And that's okay, because most of the time, we're going at speeds where we're not really concerned about those fingers staying down for resonance sake. Let's check that out now. I'm going to teach you a couple of variations to the G run that are going to end up being probably the primary G runs that you play and that you've probably heard. But we're going to add a note in that's outside of that pentatonic scale. And this is a great opportunity to talk about this. We're going to add something called the flat third. What do I mean by that? I mean that we take the third tone of the major scale and we flatten it 1 fret, okay, down a half step, which is interesting because the third tone of the scale is what determines whether a scale or a chord is major or minor. So if it's where we learned it, that's a major. But if you flatten it 1, you hear the difference, that's a minor. And bluegrass is always blending those two things. And one of our favorite things to do when we're picking and improvising is take that major third tone and work it back and forth with the flat third. Do it all over the place. And that's what we're going to do in this G run variation. And it's going to mess with our timing a little bit because we're adding in an extra note. I'm just going to play this variation for you right quick, and then we'll learn how to play it. Sounds like this. Again. Okay. Now we're going to do a lot of work with our index finger there. We're going to do a slide and such, but let's look at the tab, because I want you to see what's happened to the note. Where are our original notes? Well, first of all, here's our VIP notes. Those have not changed. And then we've got our pentatonic notes, boom, 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 boom. So here's the one note, that first fret, that's a stranger, or so to speak, right? But if you look back and measure 15, and you compare that with what we're doing here, everything's the same. That's why I taught it to you that way. Except we're just going to come in a little bit early with an upstroke and play that first fret. Now, the tricky thing here that everybody messes up on is pick strokes. They want to play everything with the downstroke, or they get it mixed up, and it messes with their timing, it messes with their speed. And now, granted, once you get it down later on, you can start breaking some rules here, but I'm going to be a stickler for you to learn these pick strokes. So we'll start with a downstroke. That's why you have the down arrow on that third fret, measure 17. Then another downstroke, and then immediately we come with an upstroke on the first fret, and then we slide to the second fret, and then another upstroke happens, and then a down for those VIP notes. Very, very slowly, it sounds like this. Try it again. Play it with me. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Ready, go. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Ready, go. 1, 2. Ready, go. Where people mess up is they don't like to do those 2 upstrokes in a row, okay? Or you try to do 2 downs in a row. You try to go. And that's fine. A lot of times that's used for accent purposes, but when you're going really fast, you can't do that easily. You need to take advantage of that upstroke. Okay? So it's important that we learn it slow so that later we can play it fast, right? You've probably heard that somewhere. So if we put this into the context of some rhythm, just finishing out that second measure with some rhythm, doing another loop, let's do that together. 1, 2, ready, go. Okay, what you may have noticed, because I did it on purpose, was you may leave your fingers down on this chord, or you might pick them up because it is a bit difficult to get back with that index finger for the slide. It's a bit of a stretch. Easier when you have a capo on and you're playing up here. And sometimes when I'm going really fast, I'll do it. When I'm going slower, I tend to maybe not just because it's a longer, more delayed stretch. And it's fun to come off. Let's put it in our 4-5-1-1 progression where we play a measure 4, a measure 5, and then we finish with this G run. 1, 2, ready, go. Here we go, we're going to play it. Let's try it again. Faster. A lot of fun. Okay, I'm going to give you one more little trick to finish off a variation that you're also going to do often. And it's not much different than what we've done so far. All that we're going to do is add a pull-off on the end on one of those VIP notes. So we don't do anything different with our pick stroke, with our pick hand. We're just going to do a pull-off, and it's probably easier to pull off going down toward the floor. So when we play that together with what we've already learned, sounds like this, measure 19. Play with me. Okay, so now really you've got 3 different ways to play a G run. You get that first more rudimentary way where I was really teaching you the pentatonic scale. And then we added in the flat third. That was fun. Gives a little swing. And then we do the pull off. So let's play through 9-pound hammer again. You can choose to use whichever one of those G-run variations that you would like, and I may go back and forth between some. 1, 2, there's a 9-pound hammer. It's a little too heavy, buddy for my size, buddy for my size. Move along, buddy, don't you roll so slow. How can I roll when the wheels won't go? Okay, did the pull off one there at the end. And the reason why we're practicing with 9-pound hammer is it starts to let you feel, because it's a hard thing to define, but feel when those G runs should be played in a song. And it's totally up to you as a rhythm guitar player. It's something of discretion. It's something that you don't really overuse, but it's also part of tradition. Certain songs call for them at certain times. Other songs are not really geared toward them. It's something that you'll learn as you go, but you've got to be able to know how to do them. Okay, if you have any questions about this, you can post it in the comments below, no matter where you're watching, or if you're a Gold Peak member here on the site. Remember that you can upload videos to the forum with you playing this G run. And if you need some help, I am there to help you and give you video responses back as well. And of course, any text comments I'll respond to. Thank you for being a Gold Pick member, and where you get new videos every week here at banjobenclark.com on banjo, mandolin, and guitar. Go out and practice that G run till your heart's content. Adios.